The scent of jasmine and freshly cut peonies filled the air as Mei-Ling moved through her shop, arranging flowers with the same precision her mother had once taught her. Each stem had a purpose, every color a meaning, tradition passed down through generations. She had built Lotus Bloom with her own hands, turning it from a modest corner store into a beloved sanctuary of blooms, where customers didn't just buy flowers, they learned their stories. Then, one morning, the letter arrived. It came in a sleek white envelope with an embossed corporate logo. The moment she saw it, she knew. They had finally taken everything. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. The words blurred, but the message was clear: Lotus Bloom had been sold. Her landlord had accepted an offer from Floral, a massive floral retail chain known for mass-producing cheap arrangements with no soul. They were buying out small, independent shops one by one. And now, Mei-Ling's shop was next. She stood frozen, her breath shallow. This wasn't just a business, this was her life. When the new corporate manager, Jason Carter, arrived the next day, he walked in with an air of practiced indifference. He glanced around at the delicate ikebana displays, the handwritten calligraphy labels, the meticulous floral selections that had taken Mei-Ling decades to curate. "Impressive little operation you've got here," Jason said, flipping through a clipboard. "But we'll need to make some changes. Streamline the process. Modernize the selection." Modernize. That word clanged in her ears like an insult. Jason gestured to a younger woman beside him. "Jessica will be overseeing operations here. She'll help transition Lotus Bloom into our Floralux model. Standardized bouquets, online pre-orders, subscription plans, efficient and scalable." Mei-Ling's jaw tightened. Efficient. Scalable. Words designed to strip away everything that made her shop unique. Jessica smiled, but it was thin and perfunctory. "We've also been reviewing the arrangements that sell best. Your traditional designs are beautiful, but a bit niche. We'll be phasing them out for styles that appeal to a broader market." Phasing them out. The words felt like a slap. "They're not just arrangements," Mei-Ling said, her voice steady but cold. "Each flower has meaning. The red chrysanthemums? They represent loyalty. White orchids, purity and honor. These are traditions. You can't just phase them out like expired inventory." Jason chuckled. "Mei-Ling, we're running a business, not a history lesson." Mei-Ling felt a slow burn rise in her chest. This was her legacy. Decades of dedication, of honoring her mother's craft, of weaving stories into petals and stems. And now, these strangers wanted to strip it all away. For the first time in years, she felt something she had long buried. Not fear. Not resignation. A quiet, simmering rage. Mei-Ling lifted her chin. "You may own this building, Jason. But you do not own me." She turned, ignoring the stunned silence behind her, and walked to the back of the shop. She wasn't done yet. Mei-Ling sat in the back of her shop, the dim afternoon light filtering through the slatted blinds. The scent of gardenia still lingered in the air, but it felt different now, like a memory fading too soon. She stared at the eviction notice on the counter. 30 days. That was all they were giving her to pack up, walk away, and watch her life's work be gutted and repackaged into soulless pre-arranged bouquets under the Floralux brand. She clenched her fists. No. Not like this. A bell chimed at the front of the store. Mei-Ling inhaled sharply, straightened her shoulders, and walked back out, expecting another soulless corporate directive from Jason. Instead, it was Mrs. Patel, a longtime customer, holding a bouquet of peonies. The elderly woman's smile faded as she noticed Mei-Ling's expression. "I heard," she said softly. "They're taking the shop from you?" Mei-Ling forced herself to nod. "They bought the lease. I have a month." Mrs. Patel shook her head. "No, Mei-Ling. We have a month." Mei-Ling frowned. "What do you mean?" The older woman placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Do you think I come here just for flowers?" she asked. I come here because you taught me that jasmine symbolizes grace, that marigolds mean resilience. Because you taught us. A lump formed in Mei-Ling's throat. I'm not the only one, Mrs. Patel continued. This shop means something to this neighborhood. To all of us. Mei-Ling had always seen her shop as hers, something she had built with her own hands, something no one else could possibly fight for the way she did. But Mrs. Patel was right. She wasn't alone. The bell rang again. Then again. A steady stream of customers trickled in, longtime patrons, former students from her floral workshops, young couples who had bought their wedding flowers from her, elderly neighbors who relied on her shop's arrangements for their temples and family altars. Word had spread. One by one, they placed their hands on the counter, their voices steady. What do you need, Mei-Ling? Mei-Ling looked around the shop, her heart pounding. This wasn't just her fight anymore. She exhaled and met their gazes. If they think they can erase me, she said, her voice firm, let's show them what happens when a garden grows its own roots. She grabbed a piece of paper and began scribbling. A plan was forming. By nightfall, her shop had transformed into something else. Mei-Ling stood in the center, surrounded by customers who had now become co-conspirators. She looked around at them, Mrs. Patel, young mothers, retired teachers, small business owners, each of them ready to fight. Floralux wants to turn this place into a franchise, she said. We're going to turn it into a co-op. A murmur spread through the room. They want to replace me with prepackaged bouquets, she continued. So we'll teach the community how to make their own. She turned to a young florist apprentice, Sophia, who had been training under her. We'll host floral design classes, real ones, not the generic workshops they sell at triple the price. Sophia nodded eagerly. Instead of letting them buy us out, we'll buy ourselves in. Mei-Ling's fingers tightened around her pen. Every customer who's ever bought a bouquet from me has the power to own part of this shop. If Floralux wants to push us out, we'll give them competition they never saw coming. Mrs. Patel grinned. We'll be the first cooperative floral studio in the city. Mei-Ling's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. They wouldn't take this from her. Not now. They wanted a fight, she murmured. Let's give them one. The shop's transformation happened faster than Mei-Ling could have imagined. By the next morning, Sophia had drafted a flyer. Own a piece of petal and thorn, join the first floral co-op in the city. It spread like wildfire. Mei-Ling's customers became investors. Each membership came with floral arrangement lessons, exclusive discounts, and the knowledge that they were preserving something real. It wasn't just about flowers anymore. It was about community. A week later, Floralux launched its first artisanal floral workshop, a watered-down, overpriced imitation of the classes Mei-Ling had taught for years. She wasn't surprised. But she was ready. At the exact same time, Mei-Ling and her team hosted their own class, right outside her shop. Sophia and the other apprentices set up folding tables covered in fresh-cut peonies, lilies, and chrysanthemums. A sign hung above them. Learn the art of real floral design, for free. Within an hour, their sidewalk was packed. The Floralux workshop, just a block away? Empty. A local journalist stopped by, drawn in by the buzz. She recognized Mei-Ling's name from the small business feature she'd done years ago and started taking notes. A few days later, the headline read, Corporate Takeover Backfires, Local Florists Co-op Model Blooms. The article spread across social media, and soon, people were choosing sides. On one side, a corporate chain that had gutted a beloved small business. On the other, a woman who had built something from nothing, only to have it stolen, until she took it back. More memberships poured in. The co-op was thriving, but Mei-Ling knew Floralux wouldn't go down quietly. They had more money, more lawyers, and a reputation to protect. She wasn't done fighting yet. 2 weeks later, the first blow came. A letter arrived at Petal and Thorn, thick with legal jargon and stamped with the Floralux corporate logo. Mei-Ling didn't need to read past the first paragraph to understand, they were threatening to sue. Unauthorized use of proprietary floral designs, it claimed. Breach of non-compete agreements, another line read. Jessica's name was at the bottom. Mei-Ling let out a slow breath, staring at the signature. The same woman who had once stood in her shop, promising a future, was now trying to erase her from the industry altogether. She slid the letter across the counter to Sophia. They think we'll fold, Mei-Ling said. Sophia scanned the paper, her face darkening. They're scared. Mei-Ling nodded. Good. She wasn't about to back down. The next morning, she called a meeting. The co-op members, now nearly 200 strong, packed into the shop, spilling onto the sidewalk. She held up the letter. Floralux wants to take us to court. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but she raised a hand, steady and calm. They think we can't fight back. But they're wrong. We built this together, and they can't take it from us. The room filled with nods, murmurs turning into determination. Here's what we're going to do. Over the next week, Mei-Ling and her team did exactly what Floralux feared most. They went public. A local TV station picked up the story. Then a major newspaper. Soon, the internet was on fire. #boycott Floralux started trending on social media. People posted side-by-side comparisons of Mei-Ling's original designs and Floralux's cheap imitations. Influencers and activists weighed in, supporting Mei-Ling, calling out Floralux's corporate greed. Then, the real hit came. One of Floralux's own employees leaked a memo, an internal email from Jessica herself, instructing stores to phase out older floral designers in favor of fresh branding. It was all over the news. The backlash was immediate. Petitions circulated. Customers canceled orders. Even Floralux's stock took a hit. And then, quietly, the lawsuit disappeared. Mei-Ling received no apology, no admission of guilt. But she didn't need one. Because Floralux had just learned the same lesson every corporation forgets. A business can be bought. But a legacy cannot. The fallout from Floralux's misstep was swift and unforgiving. Their stores, once bustling with customers eager for trendy, mass-produced bouquets, now stood eerily quiet. Local florists, many of whom had once been small competitors crushed under Floralux's expansion, now refused to supply them with fresh flowers. Suppliers who had been loyal to Mei-Ling followed suit, prioritizing independent florists over the corporate giant. Mei-Ling didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She was too busy building something bigger. With the lawsuit dropped and public sentiment on their side, the co-op thrived. New members joined weekly, some bringing decades of floral experience, others just eager to learn. Workshops filled up within hours of being announced. The once small community Mei-Ling had nurtured now had branches in 5 different cities. One afternoon, as Mei-Ling sat behind the counter, reviewing a proposal for a new co-op-funded greenhouse, the door chimed. Jessica stood there. Gone was the polished, corporate confidence. Instead, she looked smaller, uncertain. She hesitated before stepping forward. Jessica's voice faltered. I lost my job. Mei-Ling set her pen down. They needed someone to blame. And since I signed off on everything. Jessica let out a dry, humorless laugh. Turns out, loyalty to them was a one-way street. Mei-Ling didn't smile. She just let the silence settle between them. Jessica exhaled sharply, avoiding her gaze. I know I don't deserve it, but, if there's any way I can help. Mei-Ling studied her for a long moment. Do you even like flowers, Jessica? She finally asked. Jessica blinked, caught off guard. I never really thought about it. Mei-Ling nodded. That's the problem. She pushed a small notepad across the counter. We have a class this Saturday, she said simply. If you want to start over, start there. Jessica hesitated, then slowly picked up the notepad. Mei-Ling didn't watch her leave. She had work to do. The co-op was expanding. A new era of floristry was beginning. And this time, no one, not Floralux, not corporate greed, could take it away. Months passed, and the cooperative flourished beyond anything Mei-Ling had imagined. What had once been a modest response to corporate exploitation had transformed into a thriving movement. Florists from across the country reached out, eager to learn, to collaborate, to break free from the suffocating grip of mass production. Flora Luxe, on the other hand, struggled. Their attempts to rebrand, to win back customers, had failed. Without skilled florists, their arrangements lacked the heart, the artistry that had once defined their best-selling bouquets. The corporate model of maximizing profit at the expense of authenticity had crumbled under the weight of its own arrogance. One evening, as Mei-Ling locked up the shop, she found Jessica still there. She had attended every workshop for the past 3 months. She took notes. She listened. She learned. "I never actually made one of my own," Jessica admitted, looking down at the empty vase in front of her. "Every bouquet I ever sold, someone else designed it. Someone like you." Mei-Ling watched her for a moment before reaching for a pair of clippers. "Then let's change that," she said, handing them over. "Start with the foundation." Jessica hesitated, then picked up a stem of crimson peonies. Mei-Ling nodded approvingly. "Good choice." The two women stood in silence, the scent of fresh flowers thick in the air, the quiet hum of transformation settling between them. Mei-Ling wasn't looking for an apology. She was looking for change. And this? This was a start. Mei-Ling's story is more than just a tale of resilience, it's a powerful reminder that tradition, passion, and community matter more than corporate greed. In a world where mass production often replaces authenticity, Mei-Ling refused to let her craft be commodified. Instead of surrendering to a soulless business model, she turned her customers into a family, her art into a movement, and her legacy into something untouchable. This story resonates with so many of us, whether you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or forced to fight for what you've built. Mei-Ling's journey teaches us that real value isn't just in products, but in the people, stories, and traditions behind them. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think of Mei-Ling's story? Do you see yourself in her fight? Let us know in the comments. Type 2 if you loved the story, or 7 if you think it could have ended differently. And if you want to hear more inspiring stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe to True Tales. Natalie brings you real, gripping, and unforgettable stories every day. You won't want to miss the next one.